please. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Greenwood Advisory Plan Commission for Monday, April 14th, 2025. First item of business is approval of minutes from March 24th, 2025.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Ms. Stambaugh.
Second.
And a second by Mr. Price.
Walker.
Oh, Mr. Walker.
Well, it was both of us at the same time, so you can give it to John and I. Well,
I said Mr. Price. All in favor of accepting those minutes, please show by raising a hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 8-0. Special requests or continuances.
Good evening, Eric Prime, 225 South Emerson, on behalf of petitioner Taylor Morrison on the Creekstone development. They requested a continuance of the primary plat consideration PC 2025-015 be continued to the May 12th Plan Commission meeting. They are still meeting with staff to work through infrastructure matters, including sanitary sewer service and street design elements.
Okay, thank you. Staff, any comments or questions?
I would be supportive of this continuance. Currently do not have a plan that's ready for you guys to see.
Okay.
Schedule wise, that night works.
Yes, it will work.
Any questions or comments by the commissioners? Seeing none, I would accept a motion.
so moved.
Mr. Walker, motion by Mr. Walker,
I'll second that.
second by Mr. Probst. All in favor, please show by raising a hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 8-0. Findings of facts. Seeing none, we'll proceed to old business. First item on the old business is PC 2024-081, the Leatherwood Trails primary plat, vehicle connection waiver. This is not a public hearing. Who do we have presenting?
Devin, I'm with Rams.
Mike Lewis, I'm the land acquisition manager for Rams.
Please proceed.
So I'll go ahead and share these with you. Gabe shared with me the technology issues we're having earlier, so figured I'd go with the no fail.
No.
Okay. So today we are requesting a waiver for a vehicular connection between our residential project on the south side and the future parcel on the north side that's currently zoned commercial. The reason for requesting is we don't at this time have a viable layout for the commercial property, and we don't find that it is completely necessary. We spoke with the planning department a little bit on this, and they have agreed that they see that with some commitments that they would like to see instead of the vehicular crossing.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Nelson, do you have input?
I think that was an incorrect portrayal of the meeting that they had with staff. We were very clear that we do not see eye to eye with this waiver request. We would be supportive of it if they were to build the pedestrian bridge connection, and they currently do not want to. So I don't think that's accurate to say that I was in agreement.
gave it, I'm sorry, I apologize that I said that wrong. That wasn't, I said that wrong, I apologize. I meant it as in planning was supportive if we were to abide by the commitments that they outlined.
Sure, there was 5 conditions that we had requested, and one of those being that they, that 2 pedestrian connections shall be made between the commercial and residential parcels, and the residential developer, Ryan Holmes, shall construct at least one of the 2 connections. But there were 5 total conditions. We talked about them a little bit at our last meeting. With all the conditions, we would be favorable of the waiver request.
Is Ryan Holmes opposed to the 5 conditions, any of the 5 conditions?
Yes, we are. So Ryan Holmes is comfortable with doing or committing to conditions 1 and 2 and 5. But we are not comfortable with committing to 3 and 4. And I'm happy to briefly elaborate on that. So number 3 is speaking to further development of pathways on the north side parcel, which is the commercial parcel. We don't currently want to encumber that parcel with any more infrastructure at this time. Ryan Holmes is not a commercial developer. Our intentions is to sell that property to somebody that specializes in commercial development. We feel that it'd be best for the planning of common area usage on that side to be done with that project. Ryan Holmes is comfortable with number 2, which is building one of the bridges over to the north side. We just don't see that it fits for us to do any improvements on the north side at this time. And then number 4 kind of follows with that. With the maintaining of it, we're happy to maintain our common area open spaces that's on the south side of Grudge Ditch where our residential project is. And again, we're happy with building one of the 2 bridges to get it over to the north side. But we can't commit to taking care of any open spaces on the north side of the property or on the north commercial side at this time.
But may I ask a question? Do you currently own the north side of the parcel, the property, the commercial zone parcel?
We are currently under contract for it.
In Greenwood, the owner of a parcel does need to maintain it. There's high grass, there's trash, debris. So I don't know if that is adding too much to say that the residential developer, Ryan Holmes, shall be responsible for maintaining the open spaces recreation until such time as the owner association has been established. I think that they already are going to be having to do maintenance on this parcel and mowing an area for recreation around the trail could be a part of that. I would also say I don't think we're encumbering a commercial developer. Asphalt trails are relatively easy to relocate or take out if there was a large enough demand for a commercial business or property to move the common area. That's something that could be done during the site development process.
Mr. President, I'm going to give some feedback here. Is this a good time?
Good time.
So we asked a lot of questions last time, and we went back and forth about the north pedestrian walk versus the south, and we gave you a continuance so that you can engage with our planning staff. I'm just confused that why wouldn't you want to take care of the land that you're under contract for? Like, is there a reason, to help maintain it until the pedestrian walks can be put in place or until your commercial space is put into place? Wouldn't you want to take pride in knowing that the area is going to stay safe and constructing a trail that helps benefit our overall plan for the city just seems like a good faith effort in our city.
So we do intend to take care of the commercial property while we have ownership of it. But I'm more speaking towards if there was to be trails built over there, then we wouldn't we wouldn't want the homeowners association to be responsible for taking over the trails on the north side of Grubbs Ditch after we remove from the project. So,
Sorry, I'm just gonna ask a question. So if you were gonna own it, why would the homeowners association need to mow it or take care of it? I'm not sure I'm tracking either. Because if that north parcel is dedicated for commercial at some point, you're gonna flip it and sell it to the commercial developer. But until that happens, you mow it, maintain it.
correct, and that's when we would mow and maintain it.
But that wouldn't be on the
Until that happens.
homeowners association, right?
No,
Well, if we attach the condition, I think that's the concern, right?
That's what doesn't seem to be tracking, because it says here that's what you would do, is maintain it.
So the, number 4 is worded as owners association. Commercial properties would develop a owners association for any ponds or any common areas that they would have. So in the future, when that is sold to someone, commercial developer, and it is developed and an association is established, at that time, they would take over the maintenance of the trail area, which is basically mowing.
But until then, Ryan would have to take care of it, is that correct?
Based on,
Yes, based on the condition, and we could maybe modify that to say, has been established or current owner.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It seems like, because that's what the owner's supposed to do.
It could be the residential developer, Ryan Homes, or current owner shall be responsible for maintaining the open spaces recreation area until such time as an owners association has been established.
So would you do that?
Staff would be okay with that amendment, or would be favorable of it.
Yeah, we have no problems with maintaining the property. I think where our problem is installing new improvements on the north side of Grubbs Ditch. That's, and maintaining those.
So number 3.
Correct.
We were just covering number 4. I was getting ready to go to number 3.
Trying to get the easy one out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, mowing and regular maintenance of property is obviously not a problem for us.
How many feet is that sidewalk? If we go to number 3, how many feet of asphalt would we be talking to go along the road on the north side of Grubbs Ditch?
From what, starting.
The
with
part
what-
that you don't want to do, number 3, how many feet of sidewalk is that?
it hasn't been fully outlined what that would.
It doesn't seem like that big of a thing.
From the pedestrian bridge, proposed pedestrian bridge, is that what you're?
No, along the road.
No, along the road,
County line.
which is referencing item number 3,
What's,
Based on the scale, around 1,300 feet.
1,300 feet.
That's just Long County. Line.
well, and he's already said along 5 points, they have no problem with that.
Yeah, you're right. That's why I was talking about the county line.
Yeah, our understanding is
Yeah.
that
We're not.
staff wants us to build a pedestrian bridge coming off. of
You were just talking about the north side.
And we're fine with the bridge, but any trail then emanating from the bridge on the north side of that ditch going anywhere, we would be opposed to.
There may be some confusion here. I don't think we're talking about extending the trail from the bridge.
That's what I agree with you, John.
Okay,
Just for the bridge, kind of a circulation.
Oh, you do want to circle around? It's not shown that way on the drawing.
No, because that's showing, path all along the county line.
so that ensures it doesn't just stop and end and until the commercial construction is built. It would have a continuation onto the existing trail that you're gonna.
our contention is we don't know what the end user or use is for that commercial parcel.
That
or-
was the same reasoning you gave us as to why you
Right.
wanted to do the south pedestrian crosswalk. You didn't know what was gonna go there.
We like to maintain maximum flexibility for whoever wants to develop that parcel, right? And in doing so, I think those decisions as to where that endpoint is or starting point on that side of the ditch is best left at that time.
So about 400 feet or so, maybe 200 up, 400 over. Like, what are we gonna put there anyways? So I'm just still not understanding it.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I'm not tracking you.
There's another issue, I think, is if we put the bridge in, that'll entice people to go across the bridge and run their dogs and play frisbee or whatever on the commercial property.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't see any reason for, that's why we submitted the waiver request. I don't see any reason for a connection. I think staff wanted us to put a pedestrian bridge in lieu of a vehicular connection. And so that's what we were contemplating.
Understood.
I guess from our standpoint, we've been working, coming up with a good solution. We came up with a good solution, and every time we suggest something, we don't want to do it. We don't want to do it. We don't want to do it. It comes back and it can talk on our zoning comprehensive plan about the connectivity of this. I mean, if realistically, but Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the variance is actually, if we don't do that, then they actually have to build a vehicular bridge across into that commercial. And Dave, you can clarify that more.
That's correct. They, really what they're asking for is to not do a vehicular connection to the other side. I think a pedestrian bridge with a small amount of asphalt trail to loop it back to their development is a pretty good bargain for this development.
And you're looking at what Mr. Peck showed, just a bit of a loop.
Yeah, we really were trying to allow for them to come with us, to us with ideas of maybe a little pocket park, picnic table, a loop, etc. But they really just came not wanting to do any improvements. So we don't typically try to get into site design, but in an effort to talk about this waiver from a vehicular connection, we have suggested to them that maybe they tie the trail back into the development for the residents that are going to be buying their homes and being a part of Greenwood to utilize until that gets developed out. And the commercial property can definitely relocate and work with staff. We're not going to deny a good project for a small asphalt trail.
So on this drawing, they're showing an asphalt path, and then they're showing a crosshatched asphalt path. So the white asphalt path is the one that is in the existing plan.
Yes, that is correct. The hash area is for, I believe it has a note on it, path to be installed by commercial developer.
Yes. Right underneath the pipeline.
Which is actually showing that they would have the commercial developer working on the path on 5 Points Road in that north corner as well. And that's where we're asking them to loop it around.
So it's this corner right here.
Yeah, that is what we suggested to them because there was some concern about a dead end trail. And they didn't want to maintain the area that the trail was going to, which I think would be an attractive nuisance if we're not maintaining an area and then we're dumping a bridge over to the other side. That's why we've asked for them to maintain the area until there is another agency that can take over that responsibility. And that's also why we've asked them to loop it back in to the development plan.
And that looks like it's about, using my little think he used a scale, about 500 feet,
It may be in,
give or take.
Could we rewrite number 3 to say something along the lines, just throwing it out there, commissioners. A trail shall be constructed by the residential developer along a specific area designated as open space, not necessarily along County Line Road, but going toward 5 Points Road and connecting from the pedestrian bridge.
So what looked like what I sketched there.
Yeah, literally, like just write that in, so, because the way it's written right now, I see it as along all of County Line Road.
Yeah, that's the way I was.
But you would want it with some specificity, like tie it to an attached drawing or something, because you just say a loop, I mean, how big a loop, you go this far over, or?
Yeah, I read it the same way that this right now encumbers them to do the whole
Can I go
length.
in for a second? I'm just gonna walk it, because I'm trying to like get calibrated. Is this my chicken scratches, right?
Yeah.
We're thinking the same way.
Yeah, I'm not sure how
You guys
they,
just tell me how
far
you want
loop
it.
they want it.
And
It's not the scale, because I didn't look in.
But I did kind of similar.
Thanks.
So just to reiterate, along like specific area designated looping from the pedestrian trail toward 5 Points. Does that make everyone comfortable?
Sure. So it works for me. On the bridge at the very corner of the property.
I like specificity, so it is clear and you know exactly what you have to put in and the angle and how many feet.
You're looking for the sketch, something.
Yeah.
As per the drawing approved by the staff.
And in that instance, you're now asking us to build a couple of different crossings on Groves Ditch, right? One all the way over on next to 5 Points Road, and then the pedestrian bridge further west.
Well, there's already an asphalt trail that parallels the road that goes up almost to the corner.
Yeah, it stops at that ditch. And then the commercial would take over once it's developed.
is the fear that doing this connection would encumber the commercial development along 5 Points Road?
I think that's part of the fear. Yeah, and the other fear is just practicality. If we do a loop pedestrian walkway, what's next to it? Is it a parking lot? Is it an access or ingress egress to the commercial site? How practical is it when we don't know what's over there, who the user is, what it looks like, what shape it is?
The trail along 5 Points Road would follow the right of way. I don't see that being in the way of any of the commercial infrastructure that was listed.
Agreed.
Can I propose something to the effect of the trail shall be constructed by Ryan coming off the pedestrian trail toward 5 Points Road with specifics approved by Greenwood staff in a drawing? Would that make you comfortable, and Shauna, or do you want me to be even more specific?
Well, I'm trying to figure out, did you just say along 5 Points Road?
Going toward that.
Well, if we go on towards County Line Road,
Towards
I
County
was
Line.
like, I was confused about 5 Points, so.
towards County Line Road, then eastward to 5 Points.
Mr. Nelson, on this P201 sketch that we all have, the asphalt trail is shown in white, it's not cross-hatched. Does it stop at the ditch
Yes, it
on the south side?
it appears to stop at the south side of the ditch.
So this would require a second bridge, pedestrian bridge.
Or widening of the culvert.
Or widening, yeah, it'd likely be along the existing road.
So the shoulder of the road that spans the ditch, you might expand that shoulder and run the trail along that expanded shoulder on the west side of 5 Points.
Yes.
There's a culvert there, I believe, so we would have to expand that culvert or extend
Extend it.
that culvert.
Extend the culvert.
Seems like maybe putting a sidewalk in, as they're suggesting, might be a good way to, because I mean, but you don't know when that commercial development is going to take place. You're just making amenities for the people who are moving in for whatever period of time it is before you decide what you're going to do.
Yeah, we're just not sure of the value of that amenity, or the cost to install
That's illegal drains across it. 75-foot bank to bank, would the county have to get involved in also? It's legal drain?
Yes, county is involved with this project. They've engaged the county in discussions. I believe there's even discussion about trying to shore up the easements that the surveyor has, and we'll need his approval and sign off to proceed with any of the improvements in the county legal drain.
Do we know anymore? I think the last time we also talked about you had unknown easements along that pipeline, so we also got to watch getting into that other trail, right?
Yes, you'd have to stay south of that pipeline, I'm sure.
Well, I believe that's fiber, and I know that certain improvements can go over it, so that there may be the ability for the trail to cross that.
But I believe it was said originally that it was a gas pipeline decommissioned, used as fiber, right?
Yes, correct. It's a pipe, it's got the fiber going through it.
So
It's a steel pipe.
it's a little, okay. So some things could go there, but we still don't know those easements. So they've got to steer away. If we would say this, they still have to also steer away from that until that easement's known a little more.
Is that necessary to be written in or just an understanding of staff and look at that?
So we do have
That's gonna
that
guide that.
written in as number 1, blanket easement shall be pared down to allow for commercial development. And then we've asked for them to show the buildable area on a survey and the minimum easements required to protect utilities and drainage on site. And they are currently working on that right now, even without this being approved.
So as it's written, number 2 said 2 pedestrian connections, so we are sticking with that.
Yes, and staff is asking for 1 to be constructed by Ryan Holmes, the second one could be
By the development.
by the developer in the future commercial.
Mr. President, would you like to entertain a motion?
Are you done with all the discussion?
We're gonna talk about this for hours.
Does anybody else have any?
The only thing that I feel like we're got a sticking point on is number 3, and I think that's what we've been working through. So
Yeah, and keep in mind, this might be denied. Trail up there. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the request of NVR Inc., DBA Ryan Homes for a waiver of the requirement from the UDO, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Section 10.6.1, General Provisions and Design Principles, A4C, that specifies minor streets be designed to encourage connectivity with the existing street network, but discourage heavy use by through traffic, to allow a pedestrian path in lieu of a vehicular connection to the undeveloped commercial portion of the proposed development located north of Grubbs Ditch due to practical difficulties in constructing a road connecting the commercial and the residential parcels. B, approved with the following conditions. 1, blanket easement shall be pared down to allow for commercial development. Building area shall be indicated on a survey, clearly allowing the minimum easements required to protect utilities and drainage on site. Number 2, 2 pedestrian connections shall be made between the commercial and residential parcels. parcels, the residential developer Ryan Holmes shall construct at least one of the two connections. Number 3, a trail shall be constructed by the residential developer Ryan Holmes coming off the pedestrian trail towards county line and then eastward towards 5 Points Road, with specifics to be approved by Greenwood staff. Number 4, the residential Ryan Holmes developer or current owner shall be responsible for maintaining the open space as a recreational area until such time as an owner association has been established. And number 5, work with the city of Indianapolis to make the intersection of 5 Points Road and County Line Road a three-way stop, and that the Plan Commission find the criteria set forth by the Greenwood Municipal Code 1043K for the approval of the waiver has been met for the reasons set forth in the attachment to the written waiver requested and as presented.
Second. Is that Mr. Walker?
Yep.
We have a motion by Mr. Stanbaugh, by Ms. Stanbaugh, and a second by Mr. Walker. Any questions or comments before we move to a vote? Seeing none, all in favor, please show by raising a hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 8-0. So we'll wait for discussion between the staff on this out.
Thank you.
Good with that, Mr. Nelson? Ms. Lehman?
Yes, I am, and if I have any questions, I can always bring up business from the floor and
Yes.
ask you for clarification.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Next item on the old business is PC 2025-007, Davis Homes Community Change in Commitments. This is a public hearing. Anybody who stands to speak will need to be sworn in. And we'll do that at this time.
We are reopening the hearing because it was conducted and closed, but they're speaking again, so if you'd like to speak again, we're reopening it.
Although he was not here the first time, so he needs to.
Anybody
Yes.
who
Anybody
needs
who's
to be sworn in.
speaking.
Do you swear to uphold the perjury, testify to the best of your knowledge? Thank you.
Good evening, for the record, Eric Prime, Van Baylor Law Firm, 225 South Emerson, on behalf of petitioner Davis Homes. As you may recall, we were here a couple of meetings ago. There were 3 current commitments that have been placed on this ground to run with the land that the prior developer had agreed to. They are not interested or involved in the project. Davis Homes now is the new developer, and they are going to do for sale product rather than a rental. So that's the big change on that end. There were 3 issues they had with there were like 10 pages of commitments. At your prior meeting, you did grant 2 of those 3. So we're only here this evening about the 3rd item. Now this picture isn't very well blown up, but the property outlined in blue is the parcel that we're discussing here. It sits on the west side of Combs Road, north of the new S-curve that is there. It doesn't go all the way down to the S-curve. It stops 300 feet north of that S-curve. This is a quick overview, not really germane for tonight, but this is what they were planning to develop it there. It actually helps. You can see south of the development on Combs Road, all of that area that's wooded on the east side of the road is not owned by my client or under contract. And likewise, further south of the development on both east and west, they do not own or control any of that property down to the west. These were the 3 that we were concerned about. If you just look at paragraph 1B, that's the top of the 3, we were asking that commitment be clarified, that the Combs Road improvements to be made by Davis Homes would apply only to the east side of the property subject to the ordinance. In other words, property line to property line. And the petitioner does not own or have a legal right to access parcels contiguous to the S-curve. The reason we're asking for that is as we were working through the process, staff wanted to take the position, or has taken the position, that the commitment, which reads, Combs Road shall be reconstructed to meet standards connecting south to the newly constructed Combs Road S-curve, means that we have to do work in that 300-foot area that we don't own or control. So that's why we're here to get that clarified. Here is what, if we match the work done to the south through that 300-foot stretch, again, we don't own it or control it, we can't make these improvements, but this is what it would look like. So the Roten home on the west side, they're actually at the top of this exhibit's turn, but the sidewalk would go basically through their front door and front hallway. The road would go into their driveway, and then on the east side of the road, the Gates and the Hiscocks are the other folks, would lose substantial tree frontage. So that's what it would look like, let's say in a perfect world, where we somehow controlled this ground or had the right to do the work. It is obviously going to be exceptionally disruptive for those folks. Now, here is the slick part. Let's see if this works. I've embedded in here the video from the 2021 Plan Commission meeting. There we are. Let's see if we get audio. There are the Hiscocks. If we can't, I have my phone queued up to play.
You could do closed captions as well.
Oh, perfect. Would you be able to rewind this to a specific time? If we do the closed captioning, I think that'll work, or I can play it.
That's a question for our city planners, I think. Mr. Davis, is that when you want to?
Can you start that at 1 hour, 16 minutes? Perfect.
I would have to go to the west on my own property.
This is Eric Allen from Pride One, who was the petitioner at the time.
I think I'm safe in saying that if there is a tree that is outside of the current Combs Road right away on the east side, I cannot cut it. I can't go there. Am I clear in that, Eric? Was I safe for everything I said there? I promise I can't keep it.
Yeah, no, you do have to acquire ground or at least an easement, or you can't touch it. So, and to those folks that are concerned, this rezoning doesn't touch your property. You're still in the county. You need to come to the city voluntarily and request to be annexed in order to have your zoning changed by the city of Greenwood. Certainly, the county also is your jurisdiction. They can change the zoning with a petition to do so, but that would have to come from you or someone that you were selling your property to. So this won't have any effect on it in that regard. And I think the only thing we missed real quick, I know we're probably over 5 minutes, on the rebuttal was with regard to Mr. Rutherford's comments. We are working with his client, and we are amenable to reducing, if it comes to that, the size of the annex request. It would just be a change to the legal description that's in our petition. And it would just be a small sliver of ground, but just to let you know, we're working with them and discussing.
If that guy's stop talking, there's only 2 minutes to go. The crucial part's coming out right here.
Okay, that's it.
All right, Mr. Rutherford, Ms. Campagna, and Mr. Hiscock, is there any other additional comments you would like to make? Anybody on mute? No. Anybody on?
Okay, so, sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
So on widening the road, now, there is easement there. Who has final authority over widening the whole road? I understand, you can widen it into your own property, but are there plans to widen the entire road all the way from Main Street to County Line?
That's a question for our city planners, I think. Mr. Davis, is that one you want to approach?
Well, currently that road is, that portion of the road is under the jurisdiction of the county. So this annexation, since it's on the east, would bring it into our jurisdiction. Now, in general, like our petitioners were stating, we would make the developers, as part of their development petition, with their frontage and make any logical connections that need to be made. Now, as far as improving the length of the road, honestly, that would be difficult for the city to do single-handed without participation by the county, since the jurisdiction is going to jump back and forth with this being at the edge of the city. If the city was going to make a coordinated effort or a solo effort to improve the road, I think we'd have to wait for the whole thing to be annexed. Daniel, do you have anything
You
to
can stop
add
right
from
there. That's fine.
city engineer?
I think that's the important part. So Dale Davis wrote the commitment that we're here talking about today. It is clear that he had no intention for that developer to do any work south of there. He knew it was in the county. And so he was discussing, and he even says it, that the developer would improve their frontage, property line to property line. And Davis is fully willing to do that. And they will make all of their frontage equal to what is south of there in the S-curve in terms of widening the road and putting in sidewalks. That commitment is no problem. It's just that they cannot legally do work in that 300-foot stretch south of the property they're acquiring. They have no right to. So I think, honestly, we could stop here and just say, I think it's clear to everyone what was intended back in 2021, and that we shouldn't be responsible for improving any area in that 300-foot stretch. That we will fully improve property line to property line. And Dale talked about making logical connections. Clearly that if we're widening Combs Road at our south property line and at our north property line, you don't want pavement going off into the dirt, right? So it would have to taper down to match the current roadbed, north and south. Those were the logical connections that he's talking about, and obviously we would do that as well. So with all that said, I think it's pretty clear where things stand and how this should be decided, that we should be responsible for our frontage. And we're certainly willing to do that. Now, we took the extra step. If you recall at your last meeting, we said we would try to work with the county and try to work with the adjoining property owners to see what could be done. And we did that. The county is willing to let us work in their skinny right of way, but we can't really do much in there. We can't widen the road. We could improve the road, but we couldn't widen it. And then we went to each of the affected property owners, the Hiscocks, the Gates, and the Rodens. We made cash offers to them to acquire easements so that we could do this work. In all three instances, our offers were rejected with no counteroffer. None of them are interested in having any work done that would impede their homes, and you can see why. I mean, it's down, but I mean, it's a lot for those folks, particularly the Rodens, who are going to have that effect. This would come literally into their front door. So they rejected it. They don't want to have the improvements. They don't want to be annexed into Greenwood. They want to stay in the county. And so with all of that, we're back kind of to square one where, hey, we tried. We really did. I mean, we went above and beyond what I think any reasonable person would think we needed to do, because I don't think we had any obligation to do any work in that area. But we tried to acquire the ground and couldn't do it. So we're simply asking to, let's retrench, let's let common sense prevail here, and using that video from 2021, what clearly was intended, because as I was saying, you heard me saying, we can't do anything in that area. I was responding to the Hiscocks who were on that video as well. We can't touch your ground. And that was true then, and it's true now. And Dale Davis did not stop me and correct me and say, well, we're really hoping you're going to improve that area. Nobody said that. So I think it's really clear what's going on here. And I think my client ought to be lauded for at least making the attempt. They were going to spend the money to try to get these easements, even though they didn't think they were obligated to do so. And again, they were flatly rejected. So they can't do the work there. They don't legally have the right to do work there. So we're simply asking to have this commitment clarified to say, Davis, you have to improve all of the frontage, north to south. You have to make the logical connections so that it works, taper it down to fit Combs Road South and Combs Road North of your property. And you do that work in keeping with what was done to the south. And they're perfectly willing to do that.
I have a question for you, Mr. Bryant. Okay, you said you contacted the county like you're making every effort, and that's great. And you spoke with the neighbors and you made cash offers to acquire additional right of way. Was there any discussion at all with the adjoining property owners about temporary construction easements and just improving the road that's in the existing right of way so that additional did not need to be acquired? Was there any discussion about that?
Paul Carroll is here representing Davis. He's the one that made the offers. I don't think that got that granular. I think it was that initial offer was made and they were real clear that they didn't want to have it.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
That's fair. Each owner received a letter.
Were you sworn in?
I was not, I should be.
Please be sworn in.
Do you swear on Clinton's perjury, testimony true to the best of your knowledge?
I do. Those joining owners, believe Mr. Smith drew an exhibit showing which part of the property would need to be subject.
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you. What is your name and address for the record?
Sorry about that. Paul Carroll, 13 North State Street, Greenfield, Indiana, represent Davis Homes. Each of the owners adjoining that property, or the road, received a letter, an exhibit, a drawing identifying what part of their property would need to be acquired by Davis in order to make these improvements. The cash offer was $60,000 per acre across the board. We provided a calculation indicating the acreage that would be taken by the exhibit. Each of them responded, Mr. Prime's point, with a rejection. The counteroffer, Mr. Hiscock stated that there was not a price tag you could put on. So beyond that, there's no further discussion.
The reason I ask is they all seem to say, from my recollection of the meeting, was that they'd like to see the road improved. They'd like to have that hill taken out. It's dangerous. So I thought perhaps you could maybe improve the road if you could get temporary construction easements, if the concern is about the safety of the road. So that's why I asked that. They indicated they didn't mind the road being improved. I didn't know if they went down that path. So thank you for the information.
Yeah, Sean, I agree, because I think you had shown, we had done some research and found out there's an existing 30-foot right of way from the S curve all the way up to County Line Road. That was accepted by the county commissioners. I don't know, it seemed like it was 100 years ago.
And we thank Mr. Prime for that. He was the one that tracked that
Yeah,
information down and
thank you.
sent it to us. So we know what the existing right of way is.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have the issue of safety of that hill, and some emails with the county says that that's a big concern of theirs, is that hill and sight distance. So if we're gonna move forward with this, we need to address that sight distance and also perhaps their entrance where they are. We're gonna have to have a traffic engineer or professional engineer say, okay, whatever we're gonna improve there is gonna create a safe situation with this development, because you're concerned about, the neighbors are concerned about, well, we don't want all this improvement, but we've got this development coming in, and the amount of traffic coming up from Main Street is drastically gonna increase. So again, safety is gonna be a big concern with this project. And, you know, just for myself driving it and driving that hump, you know, it's a big concern for me, and, you know, we'll have to see, you know, drawings to address that.
If there's no down road vision.
Right.
Mr. Prime, could you zoom in on your acreage, that's green?
Maybe.
Maybe.
That's usually
What
as far
about,
as it's
what about the
looking
frontage of the Hiscock property that is across from the new development?
at. Yeah, hang on a second. Let me go to that next. If we go to the, this might be.
That works. What about, what's gonna be done on the frontage that's across from that?
Nothing, because we actually are going to move all of the improvements over onto our ground. So when this was annexed and rezoned, it was only annexed to the center line of homes, because that's what that owner owned at the time, right? So the current southbound lanes will still be in play. The current northbound lanes would be shoulder probably, right? I mean, we'll move everything over slightly to the west so that all of the improvements, the sidewalks, actually northbound ones will probably be sidewalk, but it'll be all contained for the most part, either in the current right of way or on our property.
So the road will shift west
It will,
in that area.
because we can't, again, for the same reason, we can't do any work over on
On the
property
side.
we don't own.
Well, again, from the center line over, we have 15 feet. And we have provisions in our design that, you know, to basically put a shoulder, 12-foot lane, another 12-foot, the turn lanes. We provide options for them to do development. So I don't think you're talking about shifting everything over. There is provisions that we run into this case. And the idea that we actually have 15 feet of right of way on that one side gives a lot of flexibility.
There's already about 3-foot gravel.
Right. So,
I have a question for the city engineer. Can they make the improvements to that road inside the existing right of way to overcome any kind of issues with the site distances and horizontal, vertical?
well, that's the big thing, is seeing what the design's gonna look like, because on the west side, you've got that existing residence and driveway right there, and the transition into their driveway is gonna be a hurdle for them.
What we had suggested is working with the property owners and possibly pursuing temporary construction easements. They needed a little bit more area to actually work on the construction of the road. The main concern being the hill in the road. I was told that they did not want to spend the money on reducing the hill, but they would repave it or recoat it. But I said the main concern of the county and the city is that there is the hill there. I think that the drawings are showing, if we have all the right of way that Eric Prime provided, there are ways that we can work with the property owners and with the developer to have some of those improvements take up less space, not have the sidewalks as far out, maybe not even have the sidewalks, which would be very unfortunate. I think we do try to have sidewalks here, because what's gonna happen is you're gonna have a bunch of new residents north, you're gonna have sidewalk south, and there's gonna be 300 feet of people walking on a narrow county road. So I do see that as a safety issue too. But we were really trying to see if they could work with the property owners on the hill, of reducing that hill. And I don't think the cash offer fully encompassed what the city was looking for.
And you also mentioned here the commitments will expire if the adjacent properties are annexed into Greenwood. Is that your intention to annex this property into Greenwood so the improvements could be made?
So
The city?
I worked on a new proposed commitment language, and the reason that I'm saying that this commitment would expire if they were to be annexed into Greenwood is because the commitment has the Johnson County staff working collaboratively with Greenwood, because right now they are the ones that will have to give approval for this project. It is in the county. Daniel Johnson was a former city engineer with the city when this commitment was first proposed. He actually works at the county now, and he has been in communication with us, and he is supportive of the commitment language that I proposed. Greenwood doesn't have a desire to annex people into the city right now. If they were to voluntarily annex into the city, it would be great to have this, because right now it switches back between Greenwood County, and that can be very difficult for maintenance.
Thank you.
Your attorney can confirm this, but involuntary annexations are gone. The opportunity for municipalities to do that are,
Pretty much it's nearly impossible.
yeah, so it's gotta be a voluntary situation now, and none of those folks want to be annexed. The county, in my discussions with Daniel Johnston, is more than happy to have somebody come in and do the work in their right of way. I mean, if they're not paying for it, they don't care. But they're not acquiring any right of way, and they're not going to use eminent domain to take any right again, I mean, I think we're just handcuffed here, that we're not gonna be able to do the work. And again, if you go back to that video, it wasn't the intention. Like, nobody was expecting anybody to do any work in that 300-foot stretch back in 2021, because that developer didn't own or control any more of this ground than the Davis developer would. We did, by the way, have Steve Fairbach at A&F Engineering do some preliminary calculations on the sightline issue. If you're only talking about our proposed entrance, which is shown on this slide, we are perfectly safe on sightlines, northbound and southbound. He already did that. We can provide a letter to the staff if they need to see it, but he did the calculations. He went out, and our engineer Jeff Smith is here as well, and he participated in that in terms of getting the measurements right. So there is no safety issue on our entrance with regard to the hill. Plenty of sightline, no problem. The only issue at all with that hill are the Roden's driveway and the Hiscox driveways, which are there right now. And that's an issue right now. That isn't an issue of our making. That's just the way it is, that those two folks have driveways right below that elevation drop. But whether this subdivision is in there or not, that's still going to be the case.
Did Dale say anything else? I mean, did anyone ask him questions, or was there any more to the actual meeting 4 years ago when he explained there would have to be some kind of collaboration with the county?
He comes back on a couple minutes later and is talking about upcoming meetings. I mean, you're welcome to play the whole thing.
Sure, I mean, I just can't remember. It's 4 years ago.
I didn't remember either, and I was talking.
Yeah,
you are too.
and
You're on there as
I'm
well.
here, and I was at that meeting, and I'm not, remembering the details.
So I do think it was captured in the clip. 119 in the video, he states that there make logical connections that need to be made. One could argue the 300-foot gap is a logical connection. He did note later on that it would be difficult to improve the length without the participation of the county. I think he worded it like alone it would be difficult for us to do that, and it would need to annex into Greenwood. So, and I would go a step further to say, yeah, it's impossible for us right now to improve it without the participation of the county. But the county is a willing participant in this, and they see the value of this improvement.
And they would have to use their eminent domain power to get enough ground to do the work. Because these folks are not going to voluntarily give that up. And we already tested that with cash.
Outside road improvements is something the engineering would want to see done with this project? Or could you live with it not being improved on that 30-foot section? Is it function now as a 300 foot?
Yeah, I mean, without seeing a design on that, and I'd have to talk to Steve Fairback, because I had talked to him probably over a month ago, and he kind of contradicts what you were saying. At that time, he said he wasn't under contract with you, so I gotta question that. Then my other question, I need to see the design to make sure it is a safe condition. And then my other concern is this, who's gonna eventually pay for this section to be built? It sounds like it's gonna be the taxpayers for City of Greenwood that's eventually gonna have to pay for this.
Well, my feeling is that the project shouldn't be held hostage to an off-site improvement if it can be done by a municipality, either that being the county or the city at some point in the future. If the road is deemed satisfactory enough to provide traffic flow between the project and the S-curves, my feeling is that maybe the government would need to get in there and take care of this, because they're the only ones that have eminent domain power, and they only have the money and the fortitude to do this, whereas the developer has no options to gain more ground to make any improvements. So to me, this is something that the government agency should take care of in some future moment in time. If that's my personal attitude towards the offsite improvements.
I guess ultimately what I want to see is the road get improved. And however that happens, I guess we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, the existing situation, building this subdivision and then building further north. I really have safety concerns, both vehicles and pedestrians.
Yes.
You know, think of kids riding a bike down the sidewalk. What do? They'll go over the shoulder of the road, and they're going over the shoulder of the road just beyond the hill.
Yeah.
I don't like creating that situation.
So I don't think they're wanting to get a clarification, right? That's what the petitioner's requesting. Yeah. A clarification. So what we could do is just propose that they continue to work collaboratively.
Well, because the clarification is really a modification, because what you'd be doing is I'm explaining what this commitment really means, and we would modify it so it was clear. So I'm thinking that's really ultimately what's happening, is it would be a modification of the commitment to clarify it.
And ultimately, the developer would construct the right-of-way improvements once it collaborates with the county and the city and the adjacent property owners.
If that's what
That's what
you believe the intent of the commitment was.
What happens there though, is
Information.
if you get stuck between the county and the city of Greenwood, it's over the 300 feet, right?
Yeah.
So then what happens? If you get stuck, what happens?
If they aren't able to satisfy the commitment, then they would not move forward with the development that would further the.
So my question then becomes, how does the developer or the homeowner or the owner of the property pull the county and the city together and come up with a commitment that works? How do you do that? I'm interested.
Yeah, and I mean, we've been in communication with the county, and we've asked for the developer to reach out to the county as well. I told them what our proposed commitment modification was, and they are, both the planning and engineering are supportive of that proposed modification. I think.
But would the county then want to exercise an eminent domain so that they can do it, or?
I don't believe so, and I don't know if we would need full eminent domain for that. There are some improvements that we probably could do within the existing right of way. We have not seen the plans or been able to confirm that though.
Have you had discussions with the developer about staying within the right of way? What the changes you'd like to see made?
No, not at this point.
I've spoken about the hill being taken out.
That's correct.
Because that's something that leaves the homeowners out and becomes feasible. Do you need more time discussing with them to come to
But you do have a limited right of way within which to work, and I would think you would need some sort of construction easement, and that would need to be paid for. It would go away after the road improvements were done, but you do not have enough room to go and do those road improvements without getting onto the properties.
Right, and if that hill were carved out, it would require retaining walls and again, off-site things to make that work. And again, we don't have the ground. We don't have the space. You can't just take the hill out. I mean,
understand?
Yeah, you still got issues on both sides once you do that.
Acceptable to do a three-part motion for the two commitments that they're wanting, so the three total, or do we need to do it separately?
The first two.
You've already acted upon.
But there's no change, we don't need to do anything to change.
We're only doing one.
No, you already approved the other two commitment modifications, so we're just down to this commitment 1B. What do we mean by these Combs Road improvements? Gotcha. Yeah.
And if I could, I'll just read what the original commitment was. Combs Road shall be reconstructed to meet standards connecting south to the newly constructed Combs Road S curve. These improvements shall be inclusive of pedestrian facilities, parentheses, sidewalks / path. Wait.
And it's the standards connecting to the south, not connecting it to the south, right? That would come up in that meeting. They wanted us to match what had already been done, going from the south up through the S curve, and it stops, as you all know, right, at the top of the S curve, because why? That was the end of the property line of that developer. They couldn't go any further. That's the way it always is done in the city. The developers are responsible, property line to property line. Right? And if this was such a big concern, then that developer could have taken the hill out and gone on up. And they didn't, and they wouldn't, because nobody does that. I think Mr. Probst is exactly right. That's a municipality issue. The county could go in today and take that hill out. Or that would actually, part of the hill is in the city. So the city and the county would work together to take the hill out and make that safer. They have the right to do that within their existing right of way.
I just don't want to handcuff the development to be killed all over.
And I don't want to create a safety.
If that too.
Would you approve a development there without this stretch of road improvements being done? If that's gonna become the next inquiry, because they'll be coming back through with development, planning and development, so.
I mean, in some ways, I think if we approve it, it almost kind of pushes the county a little further to do something, I would hope. I mean, I'm aware of our county government. They're not the most energetic towards road issues.
I think they'll say we didn't approve the subdivision.
It can't be approved to match the south, that's just impossible. But
Without more land.
Without more land. So I mean, I think it needs modified. I don't know that. I don't know the good way, the best way to do that. So. I hear the concerns of those property owners right here, but I kind of look at it like the county, the jurisdiction you're under doesn't seem interested in helping either. And we have to worry about our annexed jurisdiction.
Okay, please confirm what your staff recommends in this situation.
My recommended clarification or modification would be that the developer commits to working collaboratively with Johnson County, Greenwood, and adjacent property owners to create a detailed improvement plan for the 300-foot gap. This plan will outline specific design elements, ensuring that the necessary road and potential pedestrian facilities are developed in conjunction with the proposed development. The developer would also agree to hold a meeting with Greenwood, Johnson County, and adjacent property owners to provide updates on progress and to address any concerns. The developer will construct the right-of-way improvements as part of the proposed development contingent upon receiving consent from Johnson County. This commitment will expire if the adjacent properties are annexed into Greenwood.
Would have any changes to that based on the questions and discussions we just had?
No, I think primarily our concerns are with safety.
How does the commissioner feel about that extra coordination with Greenwood and Johnson County? Information that the planning director addressed just now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we already did that. That proposed commitment was written before we went and made the cash offers to the adjacent landowners. So I don't know what good it would do to commit to having a collaborative meeting at this point, after we've already learned from them on multiple occasions that they have no interest in doing any of this. So I mean, we would do it if that's, but we already did, is what I'm saying. I mean, that was the point.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think the only thing everyone seems to agree on is the hill has to go. Even the non-city residents.
Well, you had that collaborative meeting with the landowners. You haven't had the conversation that Shauna had mentioned, which is the temporary easement.
True, we did not ask that specific question.
Well, any improvement's gonna, I think, force that probably. I mean,
Then you would need a plan.
good, bad, or
What the
otherwise.
scope of the road is to even
Right.
there. So,
Is there an engineer that's involved in this project at this time that could do a design on that 300-foot gap and come up with a
Well, I mean,
solution? Has that
yeah,
been
that's,
done?
that's what we got already. I mean, at least preliminarily. We get to that. There we go. I mean, that's how it would look. If you want to match what's to the south, that's how it would be. As you can see, coming on the far left side of that exhibit, you see the two sidewalks at that end. That's actually northbound on Combs. That's coming out of the S curve. So you have the new width of the right of way that's within the green lines. And then the sidewalks are out obviously further from the road for safety purposes. You can't run a sidewalk right next to the road. That's not good design. So it requires the new sidewalks will go in between the red and blue lines on either side.
did you talk about maybe not even
Yeah,
wiring sidewalks, like that might be an option? Just,
we would really like to see the sidewalks. I think even if the sidewalks are closer to the road, that's potentially better than no sidewalks at all. I would say they definitely don't have to be as far as they're currently showing them.
They can't, I mean, we'll just say they can't be.
And one might say you do maybe a sidewalk on one side of the road, instead of both sides of the road. But yeah, the commitment says the potential sidewalks. I do feel like they've had maybe an offer submitted to these people. It sounds like, in writing, and received responses that they were not willing to sell for, the amount they had listed. But I do think it would be good for us to have a meeting with the county, with Greenwood, to talk about the safety concerns that we have here. I think even the property owners outside of the city of Greenwood were concerned about the hill. So I think possibly working with them could solve that.
Where in that diagram could sidewalks go? If we, red and blue are out, we can't match that. Where in that could they go?
Next to the curb?
So in the green?
How many miles an hour are we talking?
But we can't, keep in mind, we can't even do the green part. We don't have enough ground to even do the green part. Even if the sidewalks were right on the edge of the road, we can't get there.
without having like a scale where you actually show right of way from pavement to pavement, which is there's 30 feet in there, and I don't know how much of that's actual pavement and how much of that is shoulder. You can't tell
24 is
there.
pavement, correct? Yes. And on the east side, the bottom half of the picture, those trees, the pines, are, the ends of the branches are no more than 3 feet from the edge of the asphalt. So they're actually they reach out to the edge of the shoulder.
Like Dave was saying, of having a meeting, what I would like to have at that meeting is you've got 30-foot right of way. What can you build within there? What the center line profile that road, that stretch of road looks like? So we can make an informed decision. You know, maybe it's just the paving, you can't get the sidewalks in. But, you know, the big concern is, you know, the hill, and then the other big concern is pedestrian access.
I don't think we can get pedestrian on both sides, but if we can get one, that should be the goal. Try to find some compromise.
And it looks like the west side.
It does look like the west side, which would probably be the more natural pedestrian, because that's what development would be. Again, that's gonna be tight, so I think more concept there. I'm trying to think of the ways to make this commitment more narrow in scope, because right now it handcuffs them to do something in an area that none of us really have the authority to do necessarily. But I think, yeah, we would have to see more of
More engineering would be helpful and beneficial to the engineering department. Would you like to see existing conditions on that?
Yeah, I'd like to
profile?
see, here's the right of way, this is what we can get in, and this is what the center line profile would look like, site distance, because again, not only my concern, but the residents around there, you know, from the first meeting I was at, they were concerned about site distance is a big concern, so I think that would satisfy myself, Johnson County, the residents, and this board. To know what we're, okay, we're gonna agree to this, and here's what it's gonna look like.
I could go along with that. More engineering would help solve the problem.
Yeah.
You'd like that in a motion?
So should we continue this until that meeting?
I don't think we need a motion other than possibly continue this, asking for that additional information.
How long do you think
You would need.
to get this additional engineering information? You are requiring this, requesting this of the petitioner?
Yeah, what is exactly is being asked?
Your engineers need to talk about.
Sounds like your engineer that did the site study for the roadway improvements would need to meet with the city and the county together to go through those engineering plans again to see if there's a way to make that work a little better. It sounds like.
Are we talking about just sightline issues, or are we talking about continued obligation to develop the 300 feet, to redo the 300 feet?
Sounds like 300 feet
I
is the
believe the
question.
city engineer would like to see some kind of options for constructing a road within the 300 feet.
30
What-
feet wide.
What can be
What are the options?
options for the road and what can fit within there?
How do we improve it? How can we even get a pedestrian option?
And then if we have a plan in place,
Then we kind of, I think, know what we're going towards.
44.
but who pays for that plan? And who does the work?
Engineer, certified engineer, and the petitioner probably would have.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I mean, if we have a plan that everybody says, yeah, this is a good plan to make this 300 foot stretch better, then
It could be a collaborative effort with the county if they want to improve it during the course of the project while the construction equipment's already there. They might be willing to.
When the engineer and the county and the
I think to
city.
answer your question, the anticipation is that the developer would be required to perform the road improvements that everyone collaboratively agreed upon. I can't say that because they haven't modified the commitment, but they want an engineering plan and that it looks like it can be done. I can't speak for you, they'd have to see the plan and act, but
It would fall in line with the road improvements parallel to the property.
I can't speak for them.
But you know, there's like the option that the county might go, well, if it's already under construction, you might be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like if the municipality, it's not next to the project, so if they want that part approved, then they should be able to use taxpayer dollars somehow to make the road improvements. That's why we have a street department, highway department, all that stuff to make those road improvements. So maybe that needs to be moved up on the list.
But that would be during the discussion between the city, the
Sure.
county,
And
and
the
the
county,
engineer.
and I
Sure.
know that the
But I
county
think
has
that-
a plan to
But
improve that
where
road.
where he
Then we
was
have to
going,
discuss
if they
that.
say, no, we're not gonna pay anything, then who pays?
Yeah,
And
that's
that goes
what
back on the.
you would have to decide, are you gonna modify that commitment, say, sorry, you have to have this for your development, it's a safety issue, if you don't do these road improvements, you can't develop, you have to look at all those things and see what everybody's willing to do. I don't know what you
And,
would do.
and I'll clarify, I do have a serious safety concern. I think Mr. Peck has the same serious safety concern over the existing situation.
but there are developments further north that didn't have this obligation. And they're gonna bring traffic up from the south also. If you look at this, the exhibit that's in front of you, there's a T-shaped piece immediately north of the outlined blue that's being developed.
That's one that backs up to the fire station.
Yes.
Well, the Northampton Fire Station.
Well, it backs up to the Opus, the big box deal. It's the parcel immediately north of.
Yeah,
the-
yeah.
Yeah, and it's
As you
kind
say-
of,
as you
you
say,
can see it's T-shaped, yeah. So there are 2 5-acre parcels that are carved out of that aren't part of that. That developer is improving their frontage on Combs from their north property line to their south property line, which is the fat part of the T. Or the skinny part of the T, however you want to look at it. And so there's 2 5-acre parcels that are gonna be neck down again. They're not required to develop those. And that's why I'm saying, if you go back to the meeting with Dale Davis that I played for you, there are no other developers in Greenwood that I know of, and I've been doing this for a really long time, and a lot of you have as well. Developers are responsible for their frontage, and that's a good deal for the city, because you get that free. And you get all of that property, that road frontage developed. But there's never a requirement to develop more road that you don't control or own, ever. And there wasn't in this instance either. That's not what was intended. And so I think my client has bent over backwards here to try to be in good faith and make cash offers to these folks to get that ground, to be able to let somebody do the work, even if they aren't paying for the road. It can't be done. You can't get them, you can't force them other than through eminent domain. And the county has showed no interest in doing that. You can't make them give up that ground. And without that, guess what happens? So if this commitment doesn't get modified, this development's gone. And the developer walks, and the next guy in, these commitments run with the land. So every developer down the road who tries to develop this ground will run into this exact same situation, as long as staff's opinion is that that means they have to construct this 300-foot stretch that isn't in their control. And I am certain that was not the case. That was not the intention. And actually, I'm monopolizing a lot of time here. Mr. Robinson is here, and he actually wanted to speak about this. He's the landowner that owns the outlying parcel. So if you have time to hear from him, I think he'd like to say something.
Sure.
Morning. Thank you, James B. Robinson, 925 Silver Valley Circle, Greenwood, and am the managing member of Robinson CRF LLC, which is the group that owns the parcel. We've owned farm ground on Combs Road for 53 years and have been present there. Specific to the issue at hand, have been involved since the beginning when we were first approached by Pride One regarding the development. And we have no documentation, no correspondence associated with the need for the developer that approached us to improve that 300-foot stretch. We've not owned it, we've not rented it, we've not had any control over that property for the 53-year time period. I just wanted to reinforce that to you. A concern of ours, admittedly, is on the economic side. Out of the 5 members that make up the LLC, we're all brothers, inherited the property. 2 are in their 70s, the youngest is in his 60s and disabled. And we're at a point where the sale of the property, the ability for the sale of the property to go through has value, in particular for those 3 out of the 5 individuals that have been noted. To ask for the developer to take control of the property, that they, under typical conditions, even conditions that are further north on Combs Road, meaning that T section, the developer takes care of what's under their control, the developer doesn't take control of what isn't under their control, and it's our understanding that that has been the case. And just wanted to give voice to that and or answer questions you may have about our involvement, recollections, documentation specific to the task at hand.
Thanks for the information, I appreciate it.
Mr. Nelson, is there value in continuance? Gather these 3 engineering entities together?
I think it would be beneficial, for the three engineering entities to sit down and try to see if there's any feasible way to make this happen.
How long, I don't think that's what we established, how long we need.
Well, from an engineering standpoint, they'll have to go out and get field work for that and then basically come up to the plan. So it could probably be somewhere 60 days before they might have a plan to get back. And then have the meeting with Johnson County. And again, the big thing is, and I totally understand with the developer, just improving rent in front of their property. But the thing that I'm jumping on, there was a reason why that commitment was put in to connect the road. So based on that, that's why I'm jumping all over wanting that commitment uphold. But if, when this was rezoned and that commitment was not in there, then we wouldn't be having this continuing conversation on this issue.
Approximately June 9th. Is there a motion?
Our motion to approve the continuance until June 9th or June 23rd, whatever fits better for staff.
Either are fine.
And then
June 9th.
yeah, it's about 60 days, about 54 days.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion by Ms. Stambaugh, second by Mr. Probst. Are there any questions on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please show by raising a hand. All opposed, same sign. We will continue this until June 9th, and there's a lot of work to be done between now and then. If there are any issues between now and then, you bring that to the commission, please. Yes. Take a 2.5 minute break. The 8:30 break. We'll resume. Okay, we'll go ahead and resume following our 8:30, 2.5 minute break. The next item on the agenda is old business from the floor. Seeing none, we'll move to new business. PC 2024-041 Valvoline Landscape Waiver. This is not a public hearing. Petitioners listed as Michael Mihalik.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Would you like me to give a brief overview of the request? Would that be okay?
Yes, please.
Wonderful, absolutely. Well, thanks for considering our request tonight. I'm Mike Mahalik. I'm with CESO. We are the design and permitting consultant for Valvoline on this project. This particular request tonight is a landscape waiver request. It's for, you may be familiar with the site at this point, but the new Valvoline instant oil change located at 2117 Oaklawn Avenue. It's at the corner, the southeast corner of US 31 South and East Worthsville Road. That's within the upcoming commercial development going in that area. So the Valvoline site is part of that development. And if you're okay, may I share my screen real quick? Would that be okay?
Please.
Thank you. All right, should be popping up here in just a second. And share. Okay. Can you all see that okay?
Got a nice black screen. There it is. There it
It's
is.
going all right, good. Yeah, I'm worried. So here's where we're talking about. So this is the intersection of US 31 and East Worthsville Road. This is the overall commercial development. I know you all are probably very familiar with that. The Valvoline site is specifically going into this area here. So just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of where we're talking about the site being located. Now, looking here at the specific request for tonight, again, a landscape waiver specific to the foundation planting requirement, which I believe reads a 10-foot wide foundation planting strip is required along any building elevation facing a roadway. So this today doesn't face a roadway, but when the development goes in, it will be facing the access road coming off of Worthsville, thus triggering the foundation planting requirement. We're requesting the waiver here tonight to relocate the west facing, and bear with me because our plans are oriented such that north is actually down, but the west facing building elevations to be located elsewhere on site. Specifically in this case, the foundation plantings will be shifted across the drive aisle, and I've highlighted those in yellow here. I don't know if you can see that. I'll try to zoom in a little more. And we're proposing to put in approximately 42 linear feet of plantings, whereas the elevation itself on this side of the building is about 30.5 feet. And the reasons we'd like to request this is just that with this site being so narrow, shifting things over at this point, it's getting very tight. We do have an oil access port for the oil deliveries, and the truck will actually pick the used oil up out of a hose here. So the closer they can be to the building, the easier it is for them to do that. And we're also a little bit restricted here on the east side with an existing BP easement. And you may remember this from our previous waiver request that you kindly approved back late last year for us to essentially stay out of this easement as much as possible with our landscaping here. So I guess in summary, that's kind of what we're looking to do here. Hopefully be able to locate these plantings over here on the site. And again, I'm Mike with CESO. I'm really looking forward to getting this project to the finish line, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Nelson, I think staff agrees with this as long as those foundation plantings are relocated on site. Ms. Lehman?
Yep.
there any questions by the commissioners? Not, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. President, I move at the request of CESO Incorporated on behalf of Valvoline for a waiver of the requirements of Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Section 10-03-06G, Foundation Plantings, that specifies that commercial properties under 25,000 square feet shall have a minimum 10-foot wide landscaping strip along the full length of a foundation facing street to permit relocation of the plantings required along the foundation of the subject building facing US 31, the west side, and Worthsville Road, the north side, to other areas of the site due to the narrow constraints of the site, as the relocation of the plantings allows the drive aisle to abut the sidewalk and safely accommodate operations. Be approved subject to the condition that the required foundation plantings are relocated in their entirety elsewhere on the site, and that the Planning Commission find that applicant has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code Section 10-04-03K for the waiver for the reasons set forth in its request for waiver and as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. King. Is there a second? Excuse me. We have a second by Mr. Milborn. Are there any questions or comments by the commission? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 8-0. Good luck, Mr. Mahalik.
Yes, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Certainly. Thank you, Ms. Liebman, also.
Take care.
Next item was continued. That's PC 2025-015, the Creekstone primary plat. That was continued until May 12th. Next item on the agenda is 1761 East Main Street, order of demolition. I think we have a presentation by Mr. Seal.
He was here.
I believe I see his water bottle still, and may have just stepped out.
Quick look out. See if he's readily available. There we go. I think we have findings of fact and notice of hearing that was delivered. I guess you're going to present to us the situation.
Yes, good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Kenneth Seal, Commissioner for the City of Greenwood.
I need to swear you in.
Please, the hearing, so do you swear on this perjury, testimony to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Thank you.
So we're here this evening regarding a property located at 1761 East Main Street. We've worked here before on this property. There's not been any change to the property. However, the property owners were not properly and legally notified due to an error on my office's behalf in following the Secretary of State's information. We've since corrected that. We've redacted the previous order that was affirmed by the Planning Commission. And we have issued a new order properly to the owners out in California. I don't know if anybody is here to represent that property or online.
Apparently not.
With that not being said, if you'd like, I have some handouts for you.
Please.
Okay.
Maybe take it up.
Treasure Main Street, didn't they? Just intercept 69. Oh, they took out all the trees here, right?
Again, as stated, we did have a hearing on the property. And again, nothing has changed on the property itself. We did update the order of demolition and notice of hearing to the appropriate owners, the appropriate personnel. We did notify them legally. And I have since been in contact with the owner. The owner does not have a registered agent or a owner's rep for the property out here. So I have dealt personally with the owner or via phone, as they are out in California. We are here today and I'm asking you to affirm my order as it stands. However, the owner, Mr. Grant Gill, after learning the current condition of the property was appalled. He apologized. He understands that there's a substantial amount of liability there on his behalf. And he has since had two quotes done by demolition companies, and he's waiting for a third. As soon as that comes through, he's going to make a decision on which company to go with. And he fully intends to obtain the permits and have the property, the three properties demolished. Of course, to relieve him of the liability and potentially help the sale of his property is for sale and satisfy the city of Greenwood. With that saying, through my years of fulfilling this role, I've had a lot of people tell me the things that I want to hear to satisfy our requests, and then potentially don't fall through in the manner in which they have agreed. So I'd still like this order affirmed. As you can see, it already has been recorded with Johnson County. And if we can move forward to issue a findings of fact, that will act as a insurance policy, if you will, for the city of Greenwood to see that this property is taken care of should the owner not follow through on what they have stated and promised to me.
Mr. Seal, are you distributing this for placement into the record, the exhibits to show the condition of the property to prove its unsafe building status?
I am, yes. So the first would be the order of demolition. Following that, exhibits 4 through Exhibit 4, page 1 through 8, would be photographic evidence showing the current condition of the property. And Exhibit 5, page 1 through 11. Sorry, exhibit 5 through exhibit 11 are record of police reports from Greenwood Police Department over the last 18 months. There have been a total of 16 call-outs to that property. The 6 of them represented are significant, while they reinforce the nuisance that the property has become over the years.
So you're somewhat following former President Reagan and trust but verify. Trust him that he'll get his quotes and he'll do the work. Verification is that we'll get the order.
That's correct, sir.
Is that all of your testimony and evidence?
Unless there are any follow-up questions, I
Well,
believe
then
that,
what we want to do is we want to confirm there was no one online and no one present who has a substantial interest in this property or is an owner that would like to cross-examine the building commissioner at this time, or would like to now present evidence.
Appears to be so.
Questions?
Any questions by the commission?
Can we act on this with no,
First, we'll close the public hearing. Now, go ahead with your question.
I was just curious if we could take action on this with the petition of the owner not being available.
They were properly notified.
Okay, very good.
Yes. You can act to affirm, you can act to modify, or you can act to rescind. There are separate structures, but they are all commonly known as 1761 East Main Street, and that would comprise the premises. So sometimes that's referred to in the singular, even though there might be multiple structures.
And how many days will we propose declaring the break? What would be?
Do you have a
sure,
suggestion?
yeah, so, addressed in my order, they will have 10 days, following the, affirmation of the order. I know that takes a number of days to take place and be legally recorded. And then from that date, they will have 10 days to obtain a demolition permit from my office, which is very easy to do. And from then, they would have 30 days to demolish or raise the structures, or, and while it's not specific in my order, of course, if there's ongoing progress, reasonable progress, then there would be no reason for the city to interfere any further, except to see that it's completed. But, so there's 10 days from the affirmation, and then 30 days for the demolition.
So roughly 30 days from 2 weeks from now.
Yes, sir.
So about 45 days. roughly. Is that, given your conversation with the owner, do you think that's sufficient?
Yes, sir. Not only is it sufficient, but it's reasonable. And again, if there's, it is a substantially sized property. There are 3 structures there. They do have to work around the AT&T tower safely. So if they're making substantial progress at 45 days, there's no need for further intervention other than to monitor progress to see it through completion. However, I do feel that would be a reasonable time frame.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Or not a motion?
I had another
Oh,
question.
yes.
Mr. Steele, in case we have to put the bill, do we have the ability to put a lien against this property to recover?
Yes, sir. So, thanks for your question, Mr. Steve. The city of Greenwood, like any other jurisdiction, will have, ways, to recoup those funds, as well as any administrative fees that we could request, be it added, or any other fees that, are accumulated in the process of not only the act of demolition, but also the act of, filing for such. Recoupment. The state of Indiana does also have a unsafe building fund, and so has directed the city of Greenwood and all governmental taxing entities to create an unsafe building fund. I do not know the exact status of ours at this point. There would be additional funds that may be available to the city of Greenwood. That's right. To assist in the burden of that cost.
Thank you.
But I would just add that if communication or progress stop, I will have the necessary documents prepared, submitted for bid, when the time is appropriate without delay.
It's always cheaper to take care of your own business.
people.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Accept a motion.
Mr. President, I move to find that the property commonly known as 1761 East Main Street is an unsafe building because of the reasons set forth by our building commissioner, Kenneth Seal, that the order requesting JGJ Property LLC to act to abate the nuisance of the unsafe buildings that was issued by the building commissioner, Kenneth Seal, on March 13th, 2025 be affirmed, that JGJ Property LLC be ordered to abate said nuisance by demolishing and removing the unsafe buildings, including accessory structures, foundations, wells, or septic systems, and clearing the lot of debris within 45 days of the date of this order, and to authorize the president to sign the affirming order on the commission's behalf.
We have a motion by Ms. Stambaugh. Second by Mr. Price. Next, questions or comments? Favor, please show by raising a hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Seal, thank you very much for your participation in this project. I know it has been extensive. And with that,
I move to,
Oh,
Mr. President,
yeah, fine.
I move to direct the city attorney to prepare the findings of fact and order regarding the commission's decision in this matter. Said findings to incorporate the evidence submitted into the record and to authorize the president to sign the findings of fact and order in the commission's behalf.
Motion by Mr. King, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Probst. All in favor, please show by raising a hand. All opposed, same sign. 8-0. What I said still holds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any new business from the floor? Seeing none, do we have any announcements?
No announcements. I guess we'll have new applications for you to review soon. I will hold off from showing them to you tonight.
But you're saying there's an agenda for the next.
Yep, we'll have an agenda for next time that we meet.
I'll be out of the country and not available to even phone a friend.
We're talking the
28th.
Yeah, I'll be here.
And we have a little bit, Mr. King.
Not be, because I have an unused visit from my college student.
There you go. Get him out of the house. Any other announcements? We'll accept one more motion.
Move to adjourn.